In this video, we're going to be looking at whether or not an Ingersoll SC71 or indeed an SC73, as they do look the same, we'll explore that in another video, whether or not it's installed correctly. And this is very important because a poorly aligned lock, or a lock that isn't adjusted as the door and the relationship between the door and the frame changes over time, will lead to damage. And it can lead to damage to the cylinder on the outside, and it can lead damage to the actual lock case, and I'll explain more momentarily. And the first thing we need to look at is the horizontal alignment. So as you can see, if I bring the camera down, you can see that the lock case, which is this piece here, the lock case, and the strike plate or keep, they are aligned pretty well horizontally. We don't want the keep here to be higher or lower, because that will make the lock not work properly, lock properly, and it won't last as long as it should do. So if you're looking at this video and thinking that your keep doesn't look anything like in the right place, it's too high, it's too low, the gap is too big or too small, which we'll look at in a moment, you're going to need to have this piece moved. So the strike plate needs to be repositioned correctly, and it might even need to be packed out or sunk deeper into the door frame in order to get it correctly aligned. You don't move the lock case, it's the keep that needs to be moved if that is the case. The next consideration is the gap between the strike plate or keep and the lock case, and this is the gap here. And to demonstrate, I have an ordinary £2 coin, and I'm going to insert the £2 coin into the gap, and that's roughly what we're looking at. In fact, a slight wiggle, and probably slightly too much, slightly less than that, but not very tight. If you can not get a £2 coin into that gap easily and wiggle it, it's too tight. If it's bigger, it means the lock's not locking properly, not enough engagement in the bolt in the keep here. So you don't want that gap to be bigger either. Then we want to make sure that the lock is aligned in this plane correctly. And to demonstrate that, I'll open the door and fire the bolt out. Now you'll see that bolt needs to engage all the way into the keep or strike plate, and that's quite a distance. So I'll shut the door and show you what it should do. So with the door shutting now, you should see that bolt fire into the strike plate, into the keep, and hear that very solid clonk. If it doesn't clonk like that, it's only gone in partially and it's not really locked, and that's to do with alignment. And we can tell if it's aligned correctly because if we push the lock towards the outside, we should see that movement. It's very hard to detect on the camera, but you should be able to do that and feel and hear a little clonk like that. That means that the bolt is moving fairly freely in the keep and it's well aligned. One other way that we know the lock is installed correctly and working the way it should, with all those factors taken into consideration, now knowing that the bolt is well engaged on a locked door, you should be able to pull the lock open with the lightest of pressure. Really next to nothing. If it's stiff here, it means it's not aligned here, and it's putting stress on this point here. So the damage that I mentioned you'll do by using, even over a short space of time, a badly aligned lock is the handle here may fatigue and snap off. As you know, you'll be opening it one day and it will snap here. Now that happens over a period of time where every time you're pulling it, there's too much stress on the door, and eventually the metal fatigue and it breaks. And if the handle doesn't break, and this often happens when people have replaced the lock case because the handle's broken, but they haven't dealt with the fact that it needs realignment, is the handle will either snap again, or in a shorter space of time, this retaining pin will work its way out because it's under such enormous stress every time you pull the handle because of the poor alignment. So often people will replace the lock case thinking, oh, they've solved the problem because it's snapped and it must have been a defect, and it isn't. It's snapped because of poor alignment or a lack of realignment over a period of time. And buy another lock case, put it on, and lo and behold, the pin starts working out and drops out, or the handle snaps. That's because of alignment. That's not going to be covered under warranty. So it's very important that you get this alignment right. And we have people that come along to us and say that the handle snapped off across at this point here. Well, it snaps off after a long period of it being misaligned and constant use, pulling it, opening it, which is, going to cause metal fatigue. And that's it. That's what a well-aligned Ingersoll SC71 or SC73 should look like and behave like on your door. It should give you many, many years of service. The correctly aligned lock should be this easy to open. Just a very gentle pressure and it should be this easy to close. There's lubrication involved as well, but I'll go into that in a second. And if the handle doesn't break, and this often happens when people have replaced the lock case because the handle's broken, but they haven't dealt with the fact that it needs realignment, is the handle will either snap again, or in a shorter space of time, this retaining pin will work its way out because it's under such enormous stress every time you pull the handle because of the poor alignment. And finally, lubrication. So you want to be using a lubricant. We find WD-40, although it's not technically a lubricant, it's what most people have got in their home. If you start saying to buy special lubricants, people aren't going to do it. Most people have WD-40. If you do it regularly, it will prolong the life of the lock. And to lubricate the lock, you want to spray WD-40 into these openings that you see. So push that in and out while spraying WD-40 in here and spraying WD-40 here and here. So this is all wet. You can spray a little bit here to lubricate that pin. And then I won't show the other side, but because you'll see the neighbour's house, but you want to spray into the keyhole itself where the key goes, and even spray a bit on the key for the first time. So the key is wet with WD-40 and then push it in, and that will help to get that lubricant into the cylinder mechanism. And that's how you're going to prolong the life of your Ingersoll lock. Thanks for watching.